Franz Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 is one of the most famous and most recognizable works of the Romantic period. And I would also argue that it might be one of the most recognizable in the entire Western classical canon, as made famous by Tom and Jerry, and to a lesser extent, Bugs Bunny, but they didn't animate the piano correctly on that one. But here's something interesting that I should note about this song. Liszt actually left an open spot in it for whoever was playing the song to improvise material of their own. This is a section that is called a cadenza. And right there is where the cadenza begins, and the space is open for the performer to improvise. However, most people actually don't improvise a cadenza, and they just go straight to the finale, which is this part. And you know how the rest of it goes, up until that final F-sharp major chord that hits at the very end. But there are tons of cadenzas that have been written for this song, and I myself still have yet to go through all of them. Liszt himself wrote several, and there are two well-documented examples of that, but the two most talked about cadenzas I've heard about are the ones by Marc-Andre Hamelin and Sergei Rachmaninoff. And these cadenzas are both incredible works in their own right. But something I found a little bit jarring about both Hamelin and Rachmaninoff's cadenzas is that there comes a point where they just kind of wander off into their own territory. This isn't a bad thing, that's the point of a cadenza after all, but sometimes I feel like it breaks continuity with the rest of the song. And the performer's voice starts to take over, and for a moment it sort of breaks away from perhaps what it would have sounded like if Liszt himself were playing on that section. But that is why I want to talk about Andrew Wrangell's cadenza for Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. Most people know Andrew Wrangell as one half of the Sheet Music Boss channel on YouTube, with the other half being his friend Samuel Dickinson. Now, Andrew Wrangell and Samuel Dickinson are not just two people who are rendering MIDIs and embers and then posting them on YouTube. They both have real classical training, and Andrew Wrangell has concert-level piano playing abilities. And I think this is highlighted not only in the meme classic Rush E, but also in this cadenza that Andrew wrote for Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, which we're going to take a look at now. Now, we're going to begin right before the cadenza because I just really want to get into this and why I think this is such an underrated piece of work in how it sort of maintains continuity with the rest of the song before it. There is something of a prerequisite here. Hopefully, you know what Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 sounds like, and everything in the 8 minutes and 32 seconds that has followed this point in the song. I've listened to this song hundreds of times, but if you don't know what everything we've led up to here sounds like, then go ahead and give it a listen. I will post a link to this arrangement in the description. We start by introducing the cadenza here. This is material that Liszt had originally written. There's that moment of pause, and then that should be immediately familiar to anyone who knows the original song, because that is almost a direct quotation of the song's very beginning. Do you notice the similarities there? But this is where the brilliance really begins to shine through, because it's not just that part at the very beginning of Andrew's cadenza, and he's not just, you know, starting the song over from the beginning, basically. Instead, he reestablishes how the song began, and then has this little sequence here. We've now gone a half step up in key. And we have these huge chords here that are just hitting really hard, and then it's... The cadenza here is basically a recapitulation, almost, of everything that has come before it. Because it includes so many quotations of the prior material. The way I think of it is, this is a long and hard-fought journey that we have been through in the rest of the song up to this point. And this is like before we've reached our final destination, we are thinking back and reflecting on everything we have been through up to this point, while also foreshadowing a little bit of that finale that closes the piece out, because you can hear hints of it in the left hand and now in the right hand. And this is all like very flashy, very Lisztian things to do. There's the beginning again, and then we got the octave leaps. That's also another characteristic of Liszt's composition. That, wow. Those chords and the way the left hand just does those crazy arpeggiated runs. Wow, that is just beautiful. I love that. I love that part so much. Hold on. So it's what is this? This is like B minor, D major. Well, this is actually a really interesting chord. Is this an F sharp 7? It's like an F sharp minor 7 or something like that. Some weird voicing there. Oh no, it's a D major. It's a D major voicing with that added 9. So that's where that sort of color and tension comes from. And then we go from D major to G sharp 7. And we go back to C sharp. And this is another addition. This whole chromatic sequence right here is Andrew Wrangell's original material, but it actually feels really fitting to Liszt's original structure. There's one of the previous motifs again. And the one from the finale coming up. Hey there! Sorry to interrupt, but if you're enjoying what you're seeing, why not like, comment, and subscribe? And if you really enjoy what you're seeing, consider supporting me on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can watch my videos with these ad segments removed, and get behind-the-scenes insight into my creative process. There are other benefits for higher tiers as well, such as early access to my content, access to an exclusive space in the Snake Stileo Discord server, and your name being displayed in the outros of my videos. A link to support me on Patreon will be in the description. Alright, back to the video. And this is another genius part. This is another quotation, but it's very subtly woven into what the left hand is playing, while the right hand does these tremolos on the, what is that? I think that's like C7 and C8. Did you hear what the left hand was doing there? If you didn't, that's okay, because it's very subtly woven in. But I'm going to take you back to the climactic part of the Friska chapter in the song, and I want you to tell me if you recognize it. So first, listen to this. I think this is the part after Jerry placed a mousetrap on one of the keys in the Tom and Jerry cartoon. But there's that melody right there. And now listen to what the left hand is doing in this part of Andrew Wrangell's Cadenza. And it becomes more evident here in the right hand. It's in a very high register of the piano, but that makes it a little bit more apparent. But just the way it's like, I don't even know how you do that. How you make it so, like, how you make it so subtly but recognizably woven in. I mean, the rhythm is a big part of it, obviously, but it's so hard to describe unless you are, like, familiar enough with the overall structure and the overall progression and storyline of the song. But you just hear the hints in what look from the outside like random chords here. Or no, it's the same chord. It's just going through, it's just going across octaves. Like this is a C7. And that rhythm very clearly implies the like da 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 do. That whole thing. There's just this sort of urgent like fervor to it compared to earlier in the Frisca movement. This next chord is a F add sharp 11 or something like that. And then this is a C7. And it resolves nicely to F major. And actually, that's something the original motif does as well. But it's an F sharp. It's an F sharp major or minor. I think this is F sharp major. Yeah, that's F sharp major. Okay, but it briefly has that dominant tension that resolves towards the very end. So that combined with the rhythm, now that I'm thinking about it, is probably what makes that left hand part so recognizable as being sort of a different restatement of that motif from earlier in the song. I skipped a little bit too far back, but and then with this little chromatic passage in the right hand, that's when it actually makes it a little more obvious, because over top of this C7 pedal tone, it is literally playing the like little passage here where it goes, and it's going down because you know, there's not much else that can be done when you're at the absolute limits of the keyboard. We have some of those classic chord runs where you're crossing your arms a whole bunch. And then we're just introducing the finale bit by bit. And here is where you would think the finale would finally come in, but we get this chromatic sequence again, the original material from Andrew Wrangell. We do this whole alternating octaves and the chromatic run, and then the finale begins. And what I love about this cadenza is that it not only takes us back in time through the entire journey that we've been through throughout the entire song, from that opening motif to the motif from the Frisca chapter in the song. We're like revisiting where we started, but then it just takes us through this whole, again, like I said, it's a flashback on the journey we've been on for the past 8.5 minutes. But it does it through a series of new gestures that were not heard in the original statements of these motifs. we don't hear the finale like this when it finally comes up. And it's all just building towards this climactic finish. There's this part with the scale run and the chords. That voicing of the chord is also just like I don't know. I'm a sucker for extended chords or like dominant chords where there's just that second in the upper voices here. It's such a dense, tight voicing that just adds all this crunch and tension, and it wants to resolve and go in that direction. And then we're there. But now we have this chromatic sequence. And we now have more densely voiced chords. The dynamic is getting louder, it's building up. More of this chromatic system, or more of this chromatic movement. Introducing some fragments of the motifs in the song. There's the other motif. I'm saying motif a lot. There are a lot of motifs in this song, all of which are equally important to the story it tells, and all just compressed and summed up so beautifully in this cadenza. It just feels right at home with everything. And then we hit this chromatic sequence again. And now, with an upper leading tone on D natural, we are finally in the home stretch. And the journey we just spent the past 11, 12 minutes on So, to sum it up, because this is all just my, like, reaction instinctually upon listening as I go, and I pause it a whole bunch and rewind. The reason why I think Andrew Wrangell's cadenza for Hungarian Rhapsody number 2 is so brilliant is because everything that he has put into this song just builds up and makes that finale. It makes that final 5-1. I think it's a 5-1. Hold on. Oh no, this is a B major. Then a C sharp major. Okay, so it's a 4-5-1. Wow. Okay. Yeah, goes to show how just wonderful and amazing functional harmony is. But when we get to that 4-5-1, Andrew Wrangell's cadenza just has that special quality of making the finale feel particularly earned in a way that, you know, again, like I said, Marc-Andre Hamelin and Sergei Rachmaninoff's cadenzas are both wonderful pieces of work in their own right. But I feel that they don't lead us as strongly to the finale at the very end of the song as Andrew Wrangell's cadenza does, because it's a recapitulation of the whole journey that we've been through before, which is just one of the things that naturally makes certain aspects of the entire recapitulation and the idea behind it very satisfying in classical form. And the way the dynamic just gradually ramps up and doesn't stop, it really is just this fever pitch, this rush down the home stretch to our final destination. Full throttle, all guns blazing, and then... we did it. That really makes it say, we did it. We're finally home. We won. So yeah, that's just my reaction and analysis to Andrew Wrangell's Cadenza for Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. It's from the Sheet Music Boss YouTube channel, and I know they are most well known for the meme music and all that, but Andrew Wrangell and Samuel Dickinson really have those actual classical chops, and I think this Cadenza is just such a strong sign of that. And I think it shows just how in tune Andrew was with this piece when he wrote this Cadenza and arranged it and had Rafael Bienias perform and record it. And I think I can confidently say that if Franz Liszt were reincarnated and alive today, he would be very proud of this one. So yeah, that's just my reaction and analysis to Andrew Wrangell's Cadenza for Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. I think I said that already, but whatever. Absolute peak, super underrated as far as the cadenzas for this song go. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know if there are any other cadenzas that you recommend I give a listen. Again, I know there are so many others that exist out there, and I am trying to get through them all and pick out which ones I really like. But this one from 6 years ago by Andrew Wrangell is absolutely on the top of that list. List. The top of the list. Top of the... yeah, you get it. It's a very common pun that people like to make. But yeah, if you liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. That'll be about it from me for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. I will talk to you all later.